We're going to look at some different vocabulary words when we're talking about angles. So let's look at some different vocabulary words. The first one is we're going to look at intersecting lines and perpendicular lines. So make columns with your notes because we're going to draw a picture and describe what perpendicular and intersecting lines look like. You should already know that intersecting lines are lines that cross at exactly one point. And that's all you have to have. There's nothing else special about them. They just have to cross at exactly one point. And so here is a picture of intersecting lines. And you notice that they are crossing at one point, and that point would be right there. Then perpendicular lines are special kinds of intersecting lines. They are lines that intersect to form right angles. Those are 90-degree angles. And we know when we have a 90-degree angle, we're going to see a box that will tell us that it is 90 degrees. And so here's the 90-degree box right here. And so we know these are perpendicular. They're crossing at one point, and they're forming 90-degree angles. The next vocabulary word we're going to look at are skew lines. These are lines that are not parallel, and they lie in two different planes. So we're going to be looking at, instead of a two-dimensional figure, there's two different planes, so that means we're looking at more 3D pictures. And you don't have to draw this picture. You could write that we were just looking at a cube, and so that will describe to you that there are skew lines. They're not parallel, and they're in two different planes. Because intersecting lines create different kinds of angles in their relationships, the next kind of angles we're going to look at are complementary angles. Hopefully this is a review for you. They're angles whose outer rays form a right angle. The sum, which means if you add them together, the measure would be 90 degrees. So we have an image here. You can put a box there because this is a 90 degrees image. And on your homework tonight, you're going to be given images like this, and you're going to have to determine what x equals and what the two missing measurements will equal. So let's go ahead and set up our paper so that we can find all of those answers. If we already know that the sum of their measure is 90 degrees, then we're going to write that equation. We have 3x plus 2x equals 90 degrees. So we can write that equation. For your notes, I'm going to rewrite the equation so I can see what I started with without having all of the work on it. So I'm rewriting the equation exactly as I have it. To solve this, we're going to start by drawing a line down the equal sign. And we're going to combine like terms. The first side has 3 terms on it, and I see that I have 2 that have a variable with them. So I'm going to circle them and include the symbols that are in front, like that plus sign. So that's 3x plus 2x, which is 5x. And then I'm going to bring down the plus 5 equals 90. Now I have a 2-step equation, so I'm going to notice I have more terms on the first side, and I see that plus 5 has a friend around town on the other side. To do the opposite, we would subtract 5 from both sides and cancel. Bring down the 5x. 90 minus 5 is 85. Now I have a 1-step equation. This is 5 times x. So the opposite of times x times 5 is divide by 5. And cancel. And we're left with x equals 17. So we can put that x equals 17 in that box. And then let's go ahead and solve for each individual angle. So let's do 3x plus 5 first. I have 3 in parentheses instead of x because I solved for x, it's 17, and then bring the plus 5. And then you solve 3 times 17, which is 51, plus 5, and that equals 56 degrees for the first one. For the second one, 2 times 17, and when you multiply that, you get 34 degrees. And if you were to add up in your calculator 56 plus 34, it should equal 90 degrees because they are complementary angles. Let's go to an example, or the next problem. The next vocabulary word is supplementary angles. These are angles whose outer rays form a straight line. And you should remember that the sum of their measure is equal to 180. So we're going to be adding, and you see I already have the equation here. Go ahead and copy this in your notes and make sure you understand how we got that equation and why we set it to 180. I'm going to rewrite the equation so I have one nice and neat that I don't have any marks on. Draw a line down the equal sign. The first side obviously has more terms. I'm going to combine like terms. 3x plus 2x is 5x. 2 plus 8 is 10, positive 10. So plus 10 equals 180. Now I have a two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. 5x equals 170. Divide. 170 divided by 5 is 34. So x equals 34, and we could put a box around that. Now we're not finished because we want to find the measurement of the two angles that we have in our picture. So let's put a box and show the work below. So for this one, we have 3 times 34 plus 2. That's 102 plus 2, which is 104. Let me make that not look like a 9. So we have 104 as our answer for the first equation, or expression. Now we're going to go to the second one. We have 2 times 34 plus 8. 2 times 34 is 68 plus 8, and that will give us 76. So the second angle is 76 degrees. And because they're complementary and they should equal 180, and you see they make a straight line, 104 plus 76 will equal 180, and that's how you'll know you got this one right. The next vocabulary word is going to have an image. So this image we're going to be using quite a bit for the rest of Unit 1. These are parallel lines. They're lines that do not intersect, and those are R and S. They go on forever and will never intersect. And then now we have this additional line going through them. It cuts through the parallel lines. It is called a transversal, a line in which intersects two or more parallel lines. And that would be T, line T. And the last vocabulary words we're going to look at are adjacent angles or a linear pair. They're angles that share a common vertex and a common side. So they're basically next to each other. And if you look at the figure that you're going to draw again, we're going to come up with some examples. So let's find angles that share a common vertex. So let's find the vertex first. This is a vertex, and this is a vertex. Go ahead and identify them. So looking at our picture, they share the vertex and a common side. So here's a side. So they're right next to each other. So angles 1 and angle 2 would be examples. That's an example of adjacent linear pair. You could also do 6 and 7. You could even do, let me get a different color, 5 and 6. And also up here, 1 and 4. There are lots of different ones that you can find. They just have to be right next to each other and sharing a side and a vertex. And if you notice, every single time they make a straight line, and a straight line is 180 degrees. So these are going to be supplementary, meaning if you add them together, it will equal 180 degrees.